Fisheries mean a lot to Southeast Asian countries. We estimate that about 100 million people depend on fish, either through directly being fishing people or families of fishing people or working in the support sectors. And in addition, nearly every Southeast Asian eats fish. Some of the Southeast Asian countries, particularly Indonesia, Thailand, Philippines and Vietnam, major world powers in fishing. Those 4 countries, for example, are all in the top 12 fish producing countries in the world. I believe that Australia and Southeast Asia are enmeshed through their fish and fishing connections. Connections such as trade in fish. Australia imports more than half of the fish that it uses, and about half of that, those imports come from Southeast Asia. Thailand is our #1 source of fish imports, Vietnam our #3 and growing fast source of fish imports. Another connection is through illegal cross-border fishing. Now Indonesia, of course, is our immediate northern neighbour, and we've had incursions into our zone from Indonesian fishing boats. But within the region itself, each of the countries suffers from incursions from fishing boats from other countries. So it's a pervasive problem throughout the region. We also share some fish stocks with other countries in the region, of course, across the Indonesian border. And Australia is very interested in the connections through shared tuna stocks, a highly migratory species, particularly southern bluefin tuna and the Pacific Ocean and Indian Ocean tunas, which Indonesia, Philippines and Thailand are major fishing countries for as well. Now, underlying those connections are a range of problems that lead to tensions through the connections. The problems are particularly huge overcapacity that's still increasing in most Southeast Asian countries for fishing. Too many boats, in other words, and chasing too limited fish stocks. Secondly, an underlying problem is that the regional fisheries management organisations are not as effective as they need to be to handle the issues. And thirdly, there are some very basic gaps in the information that we need to even know how to manage the fisheries properly. Well, I propose 2 ways of going ahead. One I call business as usual. Australia already has very major engagements and very highly respected engagements with Southeast Asian countries over fishing in the region. So we could just continue doing what we're doing. But I think that's becoming a bit too reactive as the problems increase, perhaps, in their complexity. The second option then, which is the one I recommend, is to go for a more comprehensive and strategic fisheries engagement where we bring together all of the major parties first in Australia who have an interest in what's going on, everybody from the fishing departments in government, foreign affairs and diplomatic people and the environment departments to look at what the priorities are over this fisheries engagement, and then having decided on the priorities from the national perspective, go into a real partnership with our neighbouring countries to help them tackle the sources of some of the problems. The rapidity of the depleting stocks depends slightly on the countries involved. Indonesia, for example, is reaching overfishing on most of its stocks at the moment, whereas the Philippines was already had most of its inshore fishing stocks depleted by the early 80s. Likewise, the Gulf of Thailand, the main fishing area in Thailand, was well and truly depleted by the 80s and early 90s. Vietnam has rapidly increased its fishing in the last decade and a half and has now overfished its inshore stocks and is looking to go offshore. So all of them have fairly rapid and recent depletion, some more recent than others. I don't believe they're fundamental to causing deep frictions in the relationship, but the problems are recognised strongly on both sides. And I want to stress that Indonesia recognises illegal fishing in the Australian zone as a problem. It also has major problems in its own fishing zone with internal illegal fishing. Some of that is because of its domestic boats fishing in the wrong places where they don't have permission to be, such as big boats fishing inshore. Some of it is illegal and semi-legal foreign fishing in the Indonesian zone. When I say semi-legal, for example, some Indonesian companies will sign up joint venture agreements with foreign fishing vessels and fish as Indonesian vessels in the zone, and that's been causing some problems in recent years for Indonesia. So Indonesia appreciates Australia's efforts, in fact, to put action against illegal fishing on the regional agenda, because it sees this as a way to help address its own illegal fishing problems, as well as to help Australia and Indonesia address the cross-border issues.